The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Pastor Mike, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Have you played the new game on the Isle of Man? It's called Spot the Bus. A number of bus services are at risk of not happening today due to sickness and staff shortages, they say. The 1205 21B Lord Street return via Paul Rose, Annika and the Business Park. The 1207 Service 5 Lord Street to Ramsey via Peel. The 1240 Service 3 Lord Street to Ramsey via Laxey. The 140 Service 3 Ramsey to Douglas via Laxey. 10 past 2 Service 5 Ramsey to Douglas via Peel. The 20 past 2 Service 1H Loch Promenade to Nobles via Oncombe. And the 20 to 3 Service 3 Lord Street to Ramsey via Laxey. That's where we are. And follow the Isle of Man Transport page on Facebook, apparently, for updates. Wouldn't it be nice if they had those dot matrix signs that tell you when the next bus is coming? Imagine that. I don't think they cost a lot. We could have those on the bus stops, couldn't we, and actually tell you rather than having to go to a Facebook page. Anyway, that's where we are. What's going on? What's happening with the buses, do you think? And what is happening with Manx Care? What on earth? You heard the Chief Minister, by the way, on Friday, didn't you, talking about it was unequivocal, some would say intractable, concerning the future of Manx Care. They simply have to stick to their budget. That's it. And the fact that Manx Care is overspending might be dragging down other projects in the government, simply because Manx Care is taking the money. Chris Thomas and Andrew Smith, the Garth MHK, Chris Thomas, of course, Douglas Central, two MHKs, they're the two MHKs calling for a member of Tynwald to be basically there to oversee Manx Care, shadow the Manx Care board as a way of reforming healthcare. Chris Thomas has tabled a 4-part motion in for the October sitting of Tynwald, which starts 2 weeks tomorrow. He's got the support of Garth MHK, Andrew Smith. And I just wonder what you think of this. The Jonathan Michael's report was meant to get politics away from the day-to-day running of Manx Care. But they want to have somebody, a member of Tynwald, MHK or MLC, to be shadowing them. It's almost like they don't trust them. Anyway, this is what Garth MHK, Andrew Smith and Chris Thomas had to say.
We've established that there isn't a particularly good relationship between people like the Isle of Man Medical Society and the management of Manx Care. We all want a better healthcare service. Manx Care needs pivoting. Department of Health and Social Care needs pivoting. And my motion in October, Tynwald, is to achieve that.
Now, interestingly, a proposal that a member of Tynwald be nominated to shadow the Manx Care board. Tell us the thinking behind that.
So the law prohibits a member of Tynwald being on the board. I think it would be a good idea to not put the Minister of Health in the position whereby he's always having to megaphone, to amplify, to exaggerate what Manx Care tell him. We need actually a spokesman from the board itself, a politician to take questions and to represent Manx Care inside Tynwald. And
Andrew Smith, this is based along your thinking as well. You're on a similar wavelength on this.
Yes, I'm on a similar wavelength to Mr. Thomas. I'm very pleased to second this motion. It all came about when I think it was during the assisted dying debate, where obviously we had much more integrated discussions with the Isle of Man Medical Society, with the doctors separately, with clinicians, nurses, etc. And there was a recognition there that there was a disconnect between those professions and the Manx Care board. And as a consequence of that, in discussions with Mr. Thomas, it came out that he was on a similar wavelength. So we thought, well, better to pool ideas. Two heads are better than one. And we're now looking to work on this together, to look at the mechanics of the Manx Care board and how better we can improve things and improve things for the nation.
11 minutes past 12. I mean, what on earth is going on at Manx Care? I mean, do they expect this amount of money just to be found from somewhere else, down the back of the city or somewhere? What's going to happen? And do you think having a politician to shadow the board, not on the board, as you heard, but to shadow the board? They want the Council of Ministers to reform how the healthcare professionals are engaged to secure continuous improvement of healthcare, to ensure all executive members of Manx Care are appointed in accordance with the Public Services Commission Act 2015, to nominate a member of Tynwald to shadow the Manx Care Board for election by Tynwald at the November sitting, and bring principles for drafting a bill to amend or replace existing legislation to clarify the governance and division of responsibilities between the DHSC, Department of Health and Social Care, and Manx Care. They want that debated in January 2025. Isn't this what Manx Care was set up for? Didn't they go through all this 3 years ago? So in the 3 years, we basically got to where we are. You heard the two MHKs. You heard the Chief Minister and what he had to say about them simply overspending, shooting way above what they should have been spending for from the budget. So what do we do? David's with us now. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. Just reference to the shadowing person for a government department. How's that going to work with confidentiality stuff, strategy that's going forward? Is the health arm's length organisation what's the statutory power to say that this person who may be appointed, he or she may be appointed, is going to get the stuff? Because most of the medical stuff is confidential, most of the strategy. And do we then need a health department? Can we not collapse that then? Does Mr. Hooper then pack in and go back to the back benches? And the saddest thing about it is, what was Mr. Hooper's team doing when they were getting financial projections? Oh, don't worry, we'll make it up in the future.
Well, you wonder. I mean, was Mr. Hooper kept in the dark, or did he know and he just didn't say?
Well, it used to be the practice some time ago was every government department would get a budget, Treasury would oversee stuff, and you used to get the green, orange or the red signals from Treasury to say, you're on the edge, you need to trim that ship, you need to put the ship on a different course or something like that, or do something different or not do nothing at all. And I just wondered, where's this gone wrong?
Well, I think that's what everybody's asking, David. I mean, Manx Care was supposed to be the great white hope. The Michael's report was supposed to separate the operations from the politicians.
Well, you might as well have put the board on the Carver Man, because there's no signal on the Carver Man for telephones. I just wonder what the purpose of it is. And I think Al's quite right. His chief minister's strong and said to him, look, your budget's there, deal with it. And then if you've got something to bring it up to the minister. And then they can discuss it and the rest of us can think. I can't complain because I've had great service from the health service when they bought Synaptic over. And I just wonder if then this team who's running the health service now are just going to cherry pick people who are not going to get operations, treatment, and that would be totally wrong. Then we need a board to look after the board, wouldn't we?
Well, you see, David, I mean, health is one thing. Health is, and that's quite visible. Social care is another thing, and that goes under the radar. And social care, particularly for young people, for people with mental disabilities, all sorts of things. I mean, that's kind of the Cinderella service. So you just hope that that's getting the budget it deserves.
Yeah, and another stab really as when is going to Summerhill View's going to be open?
Oh, crikey!
Come on. It's an arm's length organisation, again, he is saying is taxpayers' money's funding this. We want people to get in. Well, in October now, do they want to transfer people just before Christmas? I think the answer's no.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks, David. Appreciate that. Lots of questions, and we just wonder what's going to happen. But I mean, it's 3 years old. Manx Care's just 3 years old. What on earth is happening? Is it the wheels come off? I mean, knowing you were going to go way above budget and not telling anybody. Did they tell anybody? Obviously, they didn't tell the Chief Minister. Mr. Cannon wasn't asked my question about how far his promised reform of DOI and HR progressed. So it's not just Manx Care that's not fit for purpose, says G. I'm sorry, G, we ran out of time. We had lots and lots of people stacked up to talk to Mr. Cannon, and hopefully he'll be here before Christmas, fingers crossed. But certainly that reform of DOI, something that he nailed his colours to the mast and just said DOI was doing far too much. Obviously, he did refer to the Ranson case and the amount of money that had cost. So there are some issues. Should Mr. Hooper already be shadowing the board instead of messing around with the Bishop's vote? And what does the population want the money spent on? £40 million on wind turbines or healthcare? We take the point, but it is a separate budget. It would be interesting to trace when the health services last stayed on budget. From my memory, healthcare has always needed more, not just since Manx Care, says Liz. Thank you, Liz. Yes, some perspective would be interesting where that's concerned. But what used to happen in the past when the DHSC and its predecessors ran over budget? Yeah, but this is what Manx Care was set up to do. As the chief, just keep going back to the Chief Minister. He said, you are given a budget. It's incumbent on you to stay within that budget, not just to, run the car off the road and then just say, I need some more money. Last week, I had a phone call from somebody saying they needed to speak to me about my late husband's telecom shares. I presumed it was a scam. Told them I didn't believe a word that came out of their mouth. And I was upset after the phone call. I'd be grateful if you could put out a warning to other widows who were married to a Manx telecom engineer. Thank you, Jill. Good to hear from you. And yes, that's it. The bus thing is pay-related, said this correspondent. The whole thing is to do with money. Well, everything's to do with money, isn't it? But we take the point. It might be nice to know what the nuances are. This didn't happen when Mr. Longworth was in charge, did it? What the heck's going on in our government? The Chief Minister would rather go after Manx Care than whoever ordered the too big boat, and how we got taken for the Liverpool shed, for the Liverpool landing stage. And why isn't the Manx Care board going to choose the MHK they want to oversee them? Will they choose a pal? Says Dave. Well, we don't know, but we will find out. This is only a proposal. It may not even happen. The Chief Minister has got the nerve to call out Manx Care for budgeting. How can anybody budget for our health or limit access to healthcare? Secondly, when does the government stick to the budget? Interesting, and the point being, I think that you make, that technically, really our health and social care service demand could be technically unlimited. Nowadays everybody wants the best healthcare. Everybody wants to live, don't they? Everybody wants the medications that will help their lives. Everybody wants the operations. Bluntly, that didn't used to happen in the past. We're living an awful lot longer than we used to. An awful lot longer. And we don't have the benefit of tobacco duty to stoke the fires of the Treasury because nobody smokes anymore. So we're not getting a lot of money. And the dark fact is that when people did smoke an awful lot more, people died younger through heart disease and lung diseases and what have you through smoking. So we're getting a lot less tax where that's concerned, and people are living a lot longer. In the end, it's all down to money. Thanks also to Anne on 090. Manx Care disposed of the dermatology consultant who was due to retire but willing to carry on with a UK company. Manx Care employed. I saw the job spec which said no experience necessary, 140,000 a year for 2 days. What, a year or a week? Anne, send me more details. If you can send me that job specification, it would be good to see. Is it Manx Care or is it the politicians that are overspending? He's going to shadow the politicians because they always overspend, says Paul. Well, yes, point taken. However, we are talking about Manx Care. and what it is that they are doing. And remember, this is all public money. This is all your money and my money. Isn't it staggering, says Dee, to hear Manx Care have decided to cut 5.5% or 1 in 20 elective surgeries in general surgery, ENT, and incredibly gynecology with a view to save the money, is it $200,000 by the end of the financial year. Whatever happened to Andrew Smith saying that Manx people will be happy paying 2% or 20 million extra in tax if it brings us a better health service? Maybe they should ask the lady who's waiting for a gynecology surgery who had it cancelled if it's better, because Manx Care want to save £200,000 from $350 million. They'd be better off getting rid of the directors who all live across and cost hundreds of thousands for doing jobs they were never needed for before Manx Care arrived, says Dee. Did Manx Care take into consideration the population increase, says Ian? And the Council of Ministers sitting in the House wearing blinkers. Costs are shooting up and the budgets aren't keeping pace. The government can go 70 million over budget on, well, not quite 70 million over budget, but it is over, and it's a lot. But healthcare needs to be fully funded, not the budget cut every year. Of course, costs are going up. Well, thank you, 935. It's a very good point. The interesting thing is, I think, to get the figures out into the public. All the figures out so the public can see it. What can't speak can't lie. So if we see the figures, then really everybody will understand them. And the point is taken that everybody wants to be healthy. Everybody wants a dentist when they want a dentist. They want a GP when they want a GP. They want to be able to go to the emergency department. They want hospital treatment when they want it. And that's the way things are nowadays. Treatment on demand. Free at the point of delivery, paid for by taxpayers. Be nice to know, wouldn't it? Here's Tony now. Hi, Tony.
How are you doing, Andy?
Very well, I'm sorry about the weather.
Well, I don't blame you. I blame the boat, because obviously there's somebody in the steam packet who's got a deal with a weather man that they don't want to sail it and save fuel on the Manxman. That's what it is.
Well, the Manxman's been sitting off Derby all weekend for some reason.
Well, because of the weather.
Oh, I see. Well, she's back in Douglas now.
It's been waiting, I guess, to go to dry dock. Why it's got to go into dry dock, I don't know. I don't think the hull was below waterline, was it?
Don't think so. No, maybe it was just maybe it's the. She's been with us a year, I think, hasn't she? So it's probably the annual treatment.
Yeah, probably. We wouldn't get told because we're not paying for it, are we? Right. Well, so what I wanted to call about, I'm sick to death of trying to get the truth out of the Honour Man steam packet because they won't tell the truth. But I heard you talking about all I heard on the news that we're going to get a new person to look after Manx Care from the government. An overseer of some sort. So we've added another layer to what we've already got. Now, I asked the question, I thought the whole idea of Manx Care and this wonderful split from moving it away from the DHSC was to do exactly what they're doing now, would get rid of that. So now they're saying, we do need somebody to look over it because they're incompetent. So my comeback straight away, right. So if you don't need Manx Care, get rid of it. Get rid of all the high-paid executives they've suddenly decided to sprout everywhere, and start going back to the DHSC and say, fix your problems that you left behind and get it done. Instead of trying to add another layer in, which won't do any good because it's just another obscure layer that we will never hear what's going on because it will be secret. I don't understand it. You know, first of all, we say it needs to be separate from government. It needs to be separate from the politicians. And now we've got to the point where, we'll have to have a politician watching over the top of it because you can't trust them.
Do you think it's because they paid for a report and the report said you need to split it? Do you think they felt the need to do what the report said?
Well, yeah, because they paid for it. But the report was made by somebody who's a civil servant. And whatever Bonzo says, he's not going to say you should get rid of civil servants, is he? If that's his job. And What has he created? He's created a monster. You've got an empty money pit that we pour money into every year, and it still comes up and says, oh, we haven't got enough, we haven't got enough, we haven't got enough. And part of the reason is it's costing you £3 million a year just to have the board. Forget about anybody else they've brought in and all the secretaries to give them reports on how many percentage of this and that and the other, how many coughs have we got in a year. I mean, we need to get back to basics. Help people who need help with medical people. Stop trying to administer the medical people to death.
Well, Manx Care was supposed to save money. That was the point of it. They were supposed to deliver savings.
Yeah, but you had to pay more money to start with to save money. So it's not hard to save money when you're paying over the odds, is it? So I found out the other day, this is an interesting one, Andy. You'll like this. If you want a CT scan, you have to go to A&E or be admitted to a ward. How about that for a good one? This is Manx Care. I don't know why, but that's what they've got as their rules. And you cannot get a CT scan if your doctor says, I want a CT scan. You've got to go through a rigmarole. And I just don't understand it. It's just not. It's not how it should be. We've got two or three CT scanners sitting there, and you've got to go to A&E and go through all the hassle in A&E to get a CT scan.
You see, what happens here is, what shouldn't happen is that the people on the ground, if you like, the workers, the people on the factory floor, if you use that metaphor, they're the ones that get it in the neck, and it's not their fault.
No, I agree 100%. It's not their fault. It's somebody who administers this who's decided that we can't trust these doctors and nurses to decide if you need a CT scan. It has to be somebody on the ward or somebody in A&E, which what exactly is the difference between a ward, A&E, and an outpatient's doctor? They're all in the hospital. I mean, I was just absolutely stunned that you can't, as a doctor, ask for a CT scan.
And when did you find this out?
No, a couple of days ago. We spent. My wife needed a CT scan, as per the doctor in the hospital, but he couldn't organise it. So we had to go to A&E, sat in A&E for 6 hours. Eventually, a man came along and put us on the system. 6 hours later, we go home. 2 days later, we get called, come to the hospital. They can't cannularize her because it needed to be with contrast. Sent home again. And then we got an urgent call, can you come back and we'll do it through A&E, honestly. We'll get it fixed.
And did they explain anything about that?
No, it's not their fault. It's the system. The doctors don't agree with it either. The person I talked to, I'm not going to name any names because you might get it in the neck, but I think they do a brilliant job. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with the hospital, the doctors, the nurses. It's the system, and it's driven by bureaucracy. It's driven by Manx Care and its bureaucratic approach. And that is driven by the fact that the government couldn't get DHSC to do their job, so basically we pass it over to somebody else and then blame somebody else. This is like everything you ever see out in systems where, oh, we can't get this done, what should we do? Well, we'll get somebody else in and give it to them and then blame them. That's what it comes down to. I mean, I just despair. You could save millions at that hospital if they would just send some people in as a team and look at how they do things and why you have to have departments individually organise something but don't talk to other departments except once a week. It's just not the way. If you were to do this in private medical care, it would all be together. It would be just a streamlined process because it's cheaper and it's more effective.
Okay.
Because they're charging you for that privilege.
All right. Appreciate it, Tony. Thanks for calling today.
Yeah. Good luck. Don't ask for a CT scan. There's the answer.
Good to hear from you. Thanks for that. Here's Andrew now. Hello, Andrew.
Hi, good day to you, Andy. I have 3 items today, please. One, just as Tony was talking about Manx Care and the overspend, and I was just having a little browse and looking at the who the board members are of Manx Care, and then something struck a chord which I delved into a bit further, and obviously they have a finance director. And I've looked at the finance director's available information, and it says, studied business and economics at Trinity College, former finance director at a local business, former finance director at Artman Treasury. Now, doctors have various disciplines, don't they? So your ear, nose and throat or whatever, right? Various disciplines. Also, accountants have various disciplines. So nowhere on what I can see here does the finance director have any professional accountancy qualification. Is that correct? Does that person have any formal finance accountancy qualification? And do they specialise in the accountancy discipline of cost accounting, being able to control costs? So if they don't have that, how can anybody have any confidence that Manx Care is going to be able to bring costs under control? So that's the first item.
Yep.
Next item, please, was Dawn Kinnish and the Landlord Registration Act.
Yes.
Being not a priority for the Department of Infrastructure. And it begs the question, is it not a priority because they realise, oh, hang on, what about government housing stock? What about council housing stock? What about commissioners' housing stock? We're going to try and put some minimum standards in place for private landlords. Will our own houses meet those requirements? Let's make it not a priority then. So that's the second item.
Well, you think the government is walking away from its responsibility as a landlord?
Correct. That's what it seems to be. We'll just say it's not a priority because that will give us a bit more breathing space. And the next item, please, was bus services and the bus cancellations. As I came out of Peel this morning, there was a double-decker bus parked on East Quay outside the Black Dog Pizza Oven, disgorging many, many passengers. And I stopped, looked back, private hire on a tour. I didn't get the name of the tour. I presume there's no cruise ship in today, is there?
No, that will be presumably coach parties from the promenade in Douglas somewhere.
So it's there as a contract private hire, and there was obviously there's a driver driving that, and yet we've got local people who are wanting to use a service and they can't because there's no available bus driver. And you think, right, okay, so presumably there's a contract being signed to provide this service for these tour people.
Yep.
And so, oh dear, there'd be a penalty if we didn't do it. Well, hang on a minute. What's the disincentive? Is that the right way to put it? For not providing the actual service that you've published for the public.
Well, I think we know where the public sits in the pecking order, Andrew.
Yeah, but I mean, if there was some penalty clause, then I think things might be on a better keel.
Okay.
So
appreciate it.
The items today. Thanks now.
Good to hear from you, Andrew. Here's Charlie now on Mannin Line. Hello, Charlie.
All right. You just said getting everything out in the public.
Yeah.
Years ago, the Examiner Group used to do a yearly book that you used to buy from the newsagents.
Do you remember? Everybody's wage was in that, wasn't it?
Yeah, everything, every bit of expenditure for every department. Now, you can still get that information, but instead of having a book and just flick it through as you're having a pint in the pub or something, you now go into the government website to get one item, then you've got to come out and go back in again, out and come back in. For an hour and a half flicking through the book, it'll take you 6 or 10 hours to go through the government website.
Well, there we are, Charlie. That's an idea now. Some bright spark should publish the Examiner yearbook all over again. Sell it for £10, they'd make a fortune.
Well, yeah, I'd definitely spend 10 or 15 quid on one. Because I tell you what, I used to get a lot of information and have a go at my MHKs over it because of certain expenditures.
The thing is that when the election happened, 3 years ago now, you couldn't move for everybody saying we want transparency, we want government to be transparent. People need to know.
The MHKs can't be 100% transparent because after they swear an oath of allegiance to Tynwald, what is the first document they sign?
What is it?
Confidentiality agreement. So how can they be open with the government when they have to sign a gag?
So why do you think they all banged on about transparency during the election, the run-up to the election?
Well, you get a lot of it on farms.
Oh, I see. All right, okay. Thank you, Charles. Thank you.
My wife took up horses. She used to shovel it.
All right. Thanks for calling. Good to hear from you.
Discover a fabulous range of watches, gifts and jewellery at Ramsey Art Gallery with top brand watches from Bulova, Citizen Eco Drive and Storm to Acura, Seconda and Timex. Plus, all watch purchases come with free lifetime watch bracelet adjustment service. There's stunning gold and silver jewellery, gifts for all occasions, and of course a fabulous gallery of limited edition prints and original artworks. Find all this and more at Ramsey Art Gallery, Jewellers and Engravers, opposite Ramsey RNLI shop.
People of the Isle of Man, are you thinking of buying or selling a home? Well, wait! You need to talk to the conveyancing team at LVW Law. LVW Law! They've over 20 years of experience and know what they're talking about. They're friendly and efficient. Do not buy or sell a property without calling LVW Law on 836757 for a no-obligation quote. LVW Law.
When I decided to get a motorised chair to help my wife, we went straight to Millie Chaps. Why? Because we were impressed by their superb range. And, of course, a comfortable chair is something you really need to try before you buy. We spent plenty of time to decide what was right for us, and the friendly expert staff at Millie Chaps couldn't be more helpful. I also discovered they have motorised beds too, so we're going to go back to Millie Chaps to give them a try. For motorised chairs and beds, go and see the range for yourself at Millie Chaps of Ramsey.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
21 minutes to 1. Bonzo's on. Hello, Bonzo.
Hello. Yes. Gosh, lots of things to discuss whilst I was hanging on the phone with my first ex. So I'll just very, very quickly address one of those before I talk on my main point. Dawn Kinnish and the rental properties standards issue. Now, apparently the consultation for this, of course, hasn't been done yet because it's not a priority. And the consultation for this will be picked up, but the consultation won't be complete until June 2025. Just in time for the Tynwald recess, of course. And then it will be the 25-26 session. So something might be able to be done within that, but of course that's in the run-up to the election, so various other things will take priority, obviously, and it will be kicked into the long grass where doubtless everyone would like it to go.
Why, so, Bonzo? Why is because everybody can see what's happening.
Why? Well, there's the issue of the government's obligation as a landlord, perhaps. And there is, of course, the interests of the private landlord sector and what kind of protests they might kick up.
Well, I mean, they're not
going to do anything and Tynwald never does it. They never do anything controversial into the run-up to the election because obviously, people are looking to their seats.
Well, when David Ashford was on, and I pressed him on the fact that some people, there are landlords with dozens, sometimes hundreds of properties on the Isle of Man, and he maintained that there were good ones and poor ones. He said there were some that were fine landlords and some that weren't, or ones that required attention, shall we say. So, I mean, when you say private landlords, do you mean the people with one or two properties, or maybe one property, or the people who are running a dedicated business?
Well, the people who are running dedicated businesses, yes, those would be the people who would need to be addressed, because, of course, many people who just have sort of one or two properties, those are placed in the hands of managing agents. So that's one issue.
So
but,
what hope? Just briefly, Bonzo, what hope do you hold out then for this coming to any sort of conclusion?
Before the general election?
Yeah.
None.
Okay.
None. Now, on to Manx Care and to the strange system of why a doctor, other health professional can't order a CT scan. It has to go through A&E, or it has to go through another unit. Cost centre accounting. Doctors, of course, aren't cost centres, but units are. And so the service of the CT scan will be billed to one of those areas.
Right.
So it's that bit that actually authorises the CT. Doctor asks for one. Department says yes to or no, probably depending on the budget. And if we're a bit short this month, oh dear, can we sort of, can we ease down on that a bit? That's kind of how cost centre accounting works, which is all very well for maintaining budgets within cost centres, but it then can, of course, generate costs down the line because of penny pinching. But then we get to the whole thing about having an arm's length organisation, which conducts services that government wants done, but is not done by government. It's done by this sort of partially outsourced, completely outsourced way, but under a certain level of government control. The point about that is that you can abdicate responsibility and apply blame as politically convenient. That's what it's there for. Manx Care can say it's underfunded. Well, as we know, it's pretty. The DHSC with healthcare has asked for subventions, asked for supplementary votes. Every year, I think, for at least a decade, if not more. And that kind of tradition kind of shows you it's underfunded. But then you get to a point where you then, right, fine, this is an arm's length bunch of people, so I will give it a budget. But that budget will ignore various things, such as pay, which I think, of course, Manx Care has had to increase in line or in reflection to UK, rather than the kind of 2 or 3% that ALF and others would wish.
So, I mean, do you think...
So Manx Care are having to bear that bill, excess bill, out of the budget. So I would say that was underfunding, and that ought to be part of the budget.
So did the department, has the department given Manx Care a grenade? I mean, basically, as Department of Health and Social Care given Manx Care a job that they know Manx Care can't do for the money?
Well, they've certainly given them a grenade and are holding and they have got the pin. So they could absolve themselves of responsibility and say it's Manx Care's fault. They're not living within their means.
Interesting.
And Manx Care will then turn back and say, well, yes, but you want us to provide these services with this amount of people, and I'm afraid it costs that much.
So, where the public is in the middle, what's going to happen next, Bonzo?
I dare say that some of this is helpful to anyone who would have the intention to introduce charging on various things and essentially a creeping privatisation of healthcare.
Okay. Appreciate it, Bonzo. Thanks for being with us.
Okay, then, cheers. Bye.
Good to hear from you. John Quilliam was on Manx Radio on Friday, our 60th anniversary, every Monday and Friday, and we heard the popular Manx Radio contributor John Quilliam. Well, just after Mannin Line today, we'll hear Sir Miles Walker paying tribute to John Quilliam when he gave the eulogy at John Quilliam's funeral in 2001. That's after Mannin Line today.
Caring for a loved one with special needs can be overwhelming.
With my mobility issues, I find it difficult to manage.
This is when Top Care Nursing can help. Proud to be an Isle of Man Award for Excellence winner, their friendly, professional team of carers and nurses offer a wide range of home care services. From help with daily tasks to giving round-the-clock care, Top Care Nursing can even take blood tests in the home. For a free consultation, call 628 919 or visit topcarenursing.im.
From our castles to our cottages, our museums and the Great Laxey Wheel, you'll find hidden treasures around every corner when you visit a Manx National Heritage Site. Fill your summer making treasured memories with Manx National Heritage. Sites now open every day. By visiting, you help protect our treasured island for generations to come. Plan your visit today at manxnationalheritage.im.
Foot or leg problems? Then contact Pop Podiatry, where all services are carried out by an HCPC registered and qualified podiatrist using the latest clinically backed treatments and devices, including the new Swiss Shockwave high-powered laser treatment for tendinopathies, plus nail surgery, verruca treatment and more. Conveniently based at the Nunnery in Douglas, see what Pop Podiatry can do to help you. For your free assessment, book online today. Get back on your feet soon with poppodiatry.com.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
At 12 minutes before 1, Monday lunchtime on the Isle of Man, and Stephen's with us. Hello, Stephen.
Good afternoon, Andy, and good afternoon, listeners. If I could just make a couple of comments about Dawn Kennish's comments and also the headline. I think what it is, it's a very misleading headline with saying there's no minimum standards. There is minimum standards that both the private sector and the public sector do have to work to. If there was an issue where environmental health could intervene and issue directions to whoever to bring the property into compliance.
Yeah.
And I think that seems to be once again being missed by everybody, as if it's the Wild West in the landlord market. So I think that's an important thing that should be brought to the public's attention when this headline has been made. And the other issue is that a number of landlords did the last big debate about the issue. The Landlords Committee, if I recall rightly, did say that this will have a negative effect on the property market because the landlords who are in it will just vacate the market and sell their properties. And that seems to have started. So it's at least, fingers crossed, the government is listening to these points that were made by the landlords about the issues of regulations that are far too onerous for the market. Then people will, because it is a profit-led market, but one that is regulated. So I do feel that it's right for the government to pause, consult properly, and get it right for everybody, because we all hear about people who have that you may get one property come on the market and you've got maybe 10 or 20 applicants for it. So I do think that that's important, and we shouldn't be critical of government in taking this decision because it's important to get it right. After all, you don't want to drive more landlords away from the market, and that will exacerbate the housing crisis.
Yeah, so, I mean, do you think the exodus of, I mean, they're mainly small landlords, aren't they? They're people with a few properties who've left uncertain. Some with just one property because they just found the whole thing was too onerous.
Yes, I think that is the issue, that the small landlords who may have invested their pension money in a property and then they find that these regulations have come along which present them with too many difficulties. After all, if you've got the agents running a block of flats, or a landlord doing it as a main business, then it's just another layer of management that they just.
Okay, all right. Stephen, good to hear from you. Oh, sorry.
Because I just get a plug-in for tonight for anybody that's not going to see Joanna Lumley. There is a PAG meeting tonight, and everybody is welcome. There's an interesting panel of speakers, which is John Webster, the former governor of the colonists, Sarah Cullen of the Isle of Man Farmers, Carl Jochen from the Mitre. He'll tell you. So it'll be interesting to hear from the horse's mouth what the particular problems with working in the Manx economy, and I believe it's entitled, Is the Economy Working for You?
All right, that's great, Stephen. Thanks for calling today. We appreciate it. 8 minutes now before 1. A note in from Terry, who just said, I was having problems with Isle of Man Bank, and you gave out a number last week to get in touch with the complaints specialist and the complaints team. Absolutely useless, says Terry. It's a Jersey number. They didn't take a blind bit of notice. They told me to do what I'd already done, and I got absolutely no further. If anybody else is having problems with Isle of Man Bank, then please tell me. Some messages that came in on Friday, I didn't get to this one. It was, could you ask the Chief Minister why they couldn't bring down the boat price as they waste so much money on the Liverpool terminal? And also 350 said, and how can they have different rates for bus drivers, like a manager getting double pay? I don't know. Is that true? I used to be proud to be Manx, but with this government I feel like a second-class citizen, says that WhatsApper. That was one of them from Friday. Isn't it staggering to hear how Manx Care have decided to cut 5.5%? Yes, we've just had that one as well. And also the message in this was, our GP requested a CT scan for my wife and its appointment for this coming Thursday, so you can get some, said this. Placing a minister over the board of Manx Care is not shadowing it, it is scrutiny. We should never have outsourced Manx Care to start with, says Mark. Which begs the question, do we class it as a failed experiment, or do we plough on with Manx Care? The Michaels report said Manx Care was the way to go. We paid for the report, we commissioned the report, we've had the report, and now we've got Manx Care. Here's a note in from Thelma. She said, in 2003, when the new Nobles Hospital opened, I was so proud of it. It looked so clean and gleaming. It's a very short 21 years to be where we are today. Well, who'd have thought it, eh? If cancelling 5% of surgery saves £200,000 in 6 months, that's £400,000 in a year, £8 million for all surgeries in a year. So where does the other $342 million they're spending this year goes if surgery is that cheap? Says that anonymous texter. That's it. Thanks to Chris Quirk on the phones today. Listen for Sir Miles Walker on John Quilliam next. Back tomorrow.
WINT. 60 years serving you as the nation station. This is Manx Radio.
A few days ago, we heard the voice and remarkable recall of John Quilliam, always approachable, always willing to explain. When he died, the island's first Chief Minister, Sir Miles Walker, stood to give a eulogy to someone he regarded as a much-loved friend.
While we are thinking of his family, it is right that we should reflect on his long partnership with his beloved Jocelyn, whom he married before the start of the last war and with whom he celebrated his golden wedding. His devotion to her was, for me, typified by his care and attention during the last few years when she was far from well. Life must have been pretty difficult for them both, but I never heard him grumble or complain. And in the last few months together, nothing would give John greater pleasure than with some difficulty, I have to say, getting Mrs. Quilliam into their car, going for a drive through their beloved island countryside, enjoying ice cream or other simple pleasures before returning home. And it has to be said, at about 20 miles an hour, driving in the middle of the road with a great queue of traffic coming behind. I'm told that John and Mrs. Quilliam built their first house at the bottom of Ballacalawi, and he told me on a number of occasions of his labour of love digging the trench all the way up from the crossroads to the house, with a spade, of course, in those days, to lay the services, and his pride and joy of living in a house with mains water and mains electricity. I suppose a job was a job in those days, and John had a number of them, starting as a shepherd boy in Serby, and incidentally one of the founder members of the Serby band, working on various farms, and then moving north to build the runways at the Andreas and Jerby airfields. Not quite single-handed, but almost. On the way through that multitude of jobs, collecting a number of skills which he never forgot. Round about 1946, the family left Ballacalawi to take over and run Newlyn, a boarding house on Port St Mary Promenade. And so began a new chapter in their life, and that is where my personal recollections of John begin. Me, the milk boy, he, the boarding house proprietor and a good customer. He always came to the top of the steps when he wanted something extra to save me a second journey through to the kitchen, and on regular occasions provided my father and I with a warm drink on cold days in that comfortable kitchen.
Part of island life for 60 years.